But yeah, what we had to go through was just, I haven't seen like anything in the history books of any of the worst things that have happened to humanity, from like what 9/11, Carthage, the Holocaust, to Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the Holodomor, which was that was real. But you're saying that was real. Or are you trying to say something compared to it wasn't? No, not at all. Why are you putting words in my mouth? Anyways, yeah, no, I don't think anything in the history of anything that we've ever gone through matched to the disproportionate level of strife, suffering, and just sheer dread that enveloped Atlantis. I don't even know how Atlantis survived. But yeah, basically, many decades after this situation, we were, how do I put it? Things were very bad, but we were attempting to make a comeback. But like I said, there was still insurrection, there was still corruption. We became functionally patriarchal because the temples were either destroyed or abandoned. There was no need for theological insight, as this was a matter of material survival. So you could say it became patriarchal as it was military bureaucrats and, yeah. I mean, there were still women in like administration and politics, but functionally it was a state of martial law and emergency, where the males took over in many regards. And yeah, how do I put this? Yeah, dude, the situation was so fucked. There was an initiative to increase the national fertility of Atlantis, where mothers and fathers, taking their seed and egg, would raise their children in synthetic wombs that were protected from any external poisons and all sorts of other things. But that wasn't always reliable, as the mothers and fathers often had radiation damage and toxins in their system. Hold on. And yeah, so there was one of these little babies that were growing in a container that was cracked and exposed to environmental hazard, and it messed up its development. And this baby boy that was born with a club foot, and also slightly lower IQ and stunted growth. And when the doctors presented this baby to its mother and father, they didn't want it, and they basically gave it the designation of Enki, which was what they named their babies that were inferior, that were sickly, that weren't worthy of life. And Enki, in Aldebaran language, basically, and this is a crude way of putting it, basically translates to something like dog food, animal food, kibble, worthless, pathetic. But yeah, they left the baby, as they customarily do, in the wilderness, in the very polluted, fucked up wasteland, in which anything that had survived the Great Die-Off was very hungry and very wounded and in pain. And oh yeah, yeah, this child, this very fucked up child, basically grew up in spite of it, and had an unnatural will to survive, and broke and reset its own foot somehow, and walked with a splint, and was kind of just this, think Nicodemus. But yeah, no, he was just an outcast, and was eventually let back into Atlantean society, but barely, right? He learned their language, even though they kept trying to psychically cut him off. Like, oh, look at that fucking piece of shit. And they kept calling him Shembalin. Shembalin is the Aldebaran equivalent for inferior, lesser, cowardly, not noble, right? It was their equivalent of the N-word, basically. And it represented taboo. It represented failure. It represented just, a net loss, a net negative, so to speak. Whereas a Garthan was their word for like courageous, superior, noble. And that will come into an important context. But this Enki, as he was called by everyone, as they wouldn't stop reminding him when he went to go use the bathroom, they'd be like, "Oh no, only healthy people are allowed to use the bathroom. You go use the tree or the bucket." You know, it's like he'd try to go into a restaurant, he'd offer resources, he scavenged for food. It's like, oh, we're not going to feed a Shimbalan like you know, at our tables. What the fuck is wrong with you? And they'd send him out, and he'd basically have to eat out of like the dumpsters and stuff. No, he'd eat like their equivalent of like mutated rats, and you know, people would spit on him. They'd be like, fucking Shimbalan. He was caught stealing food once, and they binded him to a post, and they wanted to whip him like 200 times. And you know, they kept calling him Shimbalan while they lashed his back till like his muscles were exposed. And they stopped at like 60 something times and were like, you know what, you're a Shimbalan, you can't help it. And they stopped whipping him. And yeah, no, he'd look at like a fucking, you know, pretty Aldebaran girl, and they'd just like fucking bunch of the guys would start beating the shit out of him. Like, you're not gonna fuck our Aldebaran women, you fucking Shimbalan. You know, no Shimbalan's gonna fuck our women. And yeah, they'd beat the shit out of him. And if I recall, I was actually amongst some of them that beat the shit out of him. You know, we were used to just doing that because there were a lot of mutants that started to develop, and you know, they're mutants. They're not people. But anyways, so as things continued and our people just continued to suffer and it didn't look like things were getting better, the scientist caste, the problem solvers, the engineers, the mystics, those that were into the magics, the forbidden knowledge, and the, you know, very well known knowledge. It was called the Agarthan priest caste, or the Agarthan scientist caste. And yeah, they were failing as earthquakes were still a constant. There was constant famine. They were looking for ways to, you know, in lack of their terraforming technology and a lot of their technologies that they had prior that would make an environment like this not a problem. They were looking for alternative means to sanitize food from radiation and certain types of corrupted bacteria, and all sorts of things. And they were failing. And they had a subsection in their archives of dark, fucked up, evil technology that they called Shimbalan technology. And yeah, that'll become relevant in a little bit. But, you know, basically that was technology that was not sanctioned, that they was either underdeveloped and needed further study before being sanctioned and approved, or they knew the full nature of it and it was just either too evil, too destructive, and just unnecessary, and they just kind of left it into these kind of Shimbalan catacombs, so to speak. You know, like a warehouse of things they're never going to use. And that might beg the question, if they were so against such things, why did they create it? Well, during the height of their empire, when they created technology, they didn't do it for the empire. It was part of their spirituality. They believed by creating futuristic technology and things like that, it would give them a better understanding of God and a better ability to reflect on what is divine. So they developed really beautiful, life-changing technology and really terrible, fucked up technology just to understand God. You know, so there were technologies that if you were to use them, that would be unconscionable and just horrible and just dreadful. Like, why would you ever do such a thing? And, you know, but they created things that shouldn't exist just so that they could understand reality better, if that makes sense. Kind of like a non-Jewish version of the Datu Shud from Wolfenstein. Yeah. Some of these Shimbalan technologies, in theory, could have been used to bring them back to a stable state of existence, but most people were still had their mindset on, okay, these are the technologies we have available, and they're a Garthan. So let's figure out how to use those, because it would be better to use that than to dishonor ourselves with Shimbalan technology, you know. But you know, as many scientists started to die off from like cancer and sickness, and their life support systems that would temporarily extend their life started to fail, and their geniuses were starting to fade away, and they started recruiting people they normally wouldn't recruit. And Enki was amongst them. Enki was smart enough to where it's like, well, you're just as good as any. And this is when he started to build a reputation for himself and started to become seen as more than just a fucking Shimbalan. And, yeah. But, but yeah, people started to like him, at least within his caste. But then when he being pathetic and miserable and cowardly, he was part of a faction within the Shimbalan priest caste that wanted to use, or the Agarthan priest caste that wanted to use Shimbalan technology. And, they started looking to him as this potential, like, maybe we're thinking in all the wrong ways. Enki has the right idea here. And, well, I didn't know this at the time. None of my brothers did. He did a ritual where he went past the firmament when he looked into the void, and something sinister, evil, pure hatred, something that represented capitalism, pedophilia, arrogance, self-loathing, rot, kind of like the grave mind from Halo mixed with Nurgle, mixed with Epstein, mixed with just this horrible, evil thing that it was like, hey, how about you do this, this, and that? That'll make them treat you like a god. And it's like, oh, I could never be a god, but you know what? I've been a Shimbalan for so long that maybe. So he got turned to the dark side, got corrupted, became an agent of the demiurge, and Enki, this mortal, deformed scientist, basically created a little civil war, a schism within the Agarthan priest caste, which was lesser because of it. And two priest castes were created, the Agarthan priest caste and the Shimbalan priest caste, led by Enki. Anyways, the Agarthans were toiling away with trying to figure out solutions, and the corrupt bureaucrats, not knowing the nature of what was asked of them and ignoring the suggestions and warnings of the Agarthans, decided to sanction the Shimbalan priest caste using Shimbalan technologies, which was a very, very, very bad idea because it worked initially. They stopped the earthquakes. They increased food supply. They made things start to stable out and started to improve people's lives. But, it wasn't all fun and games. Not everything was good and, kosher. But, how do I put this? The insurrectionism was so... There was nothing... it was very bad, and the government was at risk of capitulation, and also at risk of capitulation from its own forces, right? So, the scientists, the eggheads, approach me and my honor guard brothers, and I see a very familiar face. I'm like, Enki, is that you? And he's like, yep. And it's like, didn't me and my friends beat the shit out of you for looking at that girl the wrong way? It's like, yep. Yep, you guys did that. Oh, it's like, oh, cool. Now, yeah, I remember you fully now, yeah. So, yeah, just the jocks versus the bullies, or the jock bullies versus the nerds. But, this nerd was, turns out he would become Dahmer. He would become Ed Gein. He would... Like Enki turned out to be like the worst, Do you think that would have anything to do with the way he was treated throughout his life? No, I can't see how that would relate. Not at all. you know, he was a fucking Shambhalan. Go use the tree. But, you know, monkey, go play with the tree. You know, stay out of our restaurants, our bathrooms. You know, go play in the tree and go, ooh, 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 you know, go eat your banana. Shoo. But, yeah, no, he was a Shambhalan. We were just treating him like he deserved to be treated. Anyways, so, yeah. Enki approached me and my brothers and said to us that he had a means of putting Atlantis's pain in the souls of those that threatened Atlantis, and we like the sounds of that. You know, basically saying that the government needed to purge its corrupted elements and have a united front. But it would take a third wheel. It would take something else to really make people no longer think about betraying the system from within it. They would need something that would represent absolute fear, that would represent absolute, just raw, visceral evil. And we're like, oh yeah, that sounds agreeable. We could probably, you know, what is all this? Like, what do you want, right? And he proposed something that would not only eliminate the government corruption, but would also remove the threat of insurrection. Yeah, like it would actually bode very well for Atlantis, and it's the morality of it is very similar to the movie Unthinkable with Samuel L. Jackson. You know, I'd recommend you pause this video and go watch that movie because it's a good movie. And then if you have already seen it, or you pause this video and go watch that movie, and then resume, you'll know what kind of train of thought we're talking about here. But yeah, no. So what happened was, me and my 35 brothers, we underwent a Shambhalan ritual. We underwent something that was evil. And, you know, I don't think we're evil because of it, but just, you know, Enki was being evil. Like, this was, maybe he could have, you know, used the same idea, but if he had someone with a less warped mind, it could have been taken care of more efficiently. Or not efficiently, but more, yeah, anyways. You know what, I have mixed feelings. I want to call Enki evil, but I also want to defend what we did. But to most people it would seem evil. But the Enki and the Shambhalans got DNA from the most voracious, bloodthirsty, strongest, stealthiest, fastest predators from, you know, old Hyperborea and other planets from our native homeworld, and, you know, modified an already existing, like, copy of our genomes, and created a new body, a new thing that was, you know, had black skin and a white trident that was inverted on its chest, in stark contrast to our right side up tridents. Our tridents represented peace, life, and order. And this inverted trident represented war, chaos, and death, you know. And the train of thought we were told was, you know, sometimes it takes the opposites to bring about the former, you know, by causing death, chaos, you know, and war. The after effects would be peace and, you know, life and order, which that was actually true. You can fight fire with fire. And it absolutely worked. It absolutely worked. But yeah, now we underwent a ritual where spiritually, just as physically, our wings and our original bodies were sliced off our backs, which I can still feel that wound in my back, no matter what incarnation I am in. And these wings were taken from us. And, you know, we were cut from source simultaneously through our wings and through our solar chakras. And also the military, in collaboration with the Shambhalans, deactivated our sacral chakras because we were meant to kill, and being sexual was not needed. Like, why? You know, it's the same thought of like Space Marines or The Witcher or something like that, where, you know, it's like you want something that won't get distracted with prostitutes or love or whatever. And they They mutated our sacral chakras to be inactive,